Folks, we have a packed show for you this week. It is Thanksgiving. This is episode number 195 of YWC Football Talk. So gobble, gobble to all my American friends out there. We're going to gobble up some football this week. I got BigRat 310 with me. Got Markeem, who's having some technical difficulties, and also Luke Braun of Locked on Vikings will be here as well to talk a little Vikings Patriots. But BigRat, your team's doing good. My team's doing good. Coming off the bye week, are you feeling good about your Dolphins at the moment?
I'm feeling stoked. I just want to send a little stray arrow to Danny, who thought that the Jets would beat the Patriots the first time. He thought they would beat the Patriots the second time. Both times it didn't happen. And I told him that my team was going to be 9-2 after 11 games. And he said, clip it, Griff, clip it. Let's laugh at this idiot for being so enthusiastic. And I said that before Teddy Bridgewater got ruled out for a concussion in that Jets game, before Skylar Thompson got ruled out for a thumb injury in that Vikings game, and I was one game off. They were 8-3 because they played the Texans this week as 12-point favorites. They're going to win that game. So, yeah, Danny can suck it right now. I love it. He's fourth in the division, right where he belongs.
And one other thing, too, that you might be right on from our season preview show, Greg Thompson, is the Browns potentially being 3-8 after this Sunday. So if they are that, I've been thinking about that all week, and I'm like, if they go that record, I'm with you in the sense of, hey, Big Rat's on a roll right now, folks.
This is a winnable game for them, though, I'll say. Like, don't hate them on the spread if it gets to 3.5, because Bucs in Cleveland, their season's kind of on the line. They'll probably have a good effort.
I think so, too. And as Markeem is rejoining us now, he is back up and running, and we're going to get into the first game of this Thanksgiving slate. We have got the Detroit Lions taking on the Buffalo Bills, who are a 9.5-point favorite. Over-under is at 53.5, And, folks, just to let you guys know, for the Sunday games, this is recording on Tuesday. So if the spreads change, it is what it is. I'll say this about this game right here. I like the Bills to win, but there's something telling me that I think the Lions, that back door is, like, wide open.
Yeah, it's hard to see the Bills.
For the Lions?
Backdoor cover.
Just to cover the spread, not to actually win the game.
Although if they do win the game, this would be I think like their equivalent of winning a Super Bowl and like that, Dan Campbell's like stamp that he's here, considering they're 3-0.
If the Lions win this game, my Dolphins are winning this division. Like there's no, I just can't see, because if the Lions win this game, that means the Dolphins can lose at Buffalo and still win the division. And I can't see it. Personally,
Buffalo is
what? Go ahead.
No, I was saying Buffalo is reeling right now. Like they can't afford to lose this game, man. Because like you said, your Dolphins are coming. And speaking of the Dolphins in general, just like I feel like you need to collect on a lot of apologies and crow that people need to eat, because you said this. You said this was building for like 2 years, and now it's finally honestly, if they snuck into the playoffs right now, dangerous as all of those receivers are, the way he is playing in games he don't die in, they could beat anybody, like anyone at all. I don't think anyone can just outplay them. Like, I'm not saying they're the best team in the league, but they can play with anybody.
They might have the best offense in the league, though. At least that's what the numbers say. It's certainly at least close. But yeah, I have a lot I want to say about them when we get to the Texans game, so I'll save it for there. But you are right on that. But to your point, like the Bills reeling, this usually is when they respond, and this is like when everyone's betting the underdog, because the Lions are a very public team. They're the Hard Knocks team. They're at home. They're on a 3-game winning streak, and everyone's betting on the Lions to keep the game close. And the Bills just give one of those like devastating 17-point wins. So yeah, I mean, maybe the Lions get the back door, like you said, but Buffalo's winning, and I wouldn't be shocked if Buffalo covers the 10 points outright.
To be honest, I would love Buffalo to just whip their ass on Thursday afternoon, because Buffalo's got a big game next Thursday night too, if you guys aren't aware. So that's what I'm going to say about that. I'm hoping for it. I'm just saying it would not shock me to see the Lions get a backdoor cover and win, 34-25, like some weird score like that, where it's like they're out of it, but then they get a late touchdown because Buffalo takes a foot off the gas. So it's like a moral, hey, late time garbage touchdown.
Oh yeah. I think you pretty much booked that. I think that will probably happen. They'll score some garbage time stuff. You booked that.
Moving on, guys. Dallas and the New York Giants. Well, the Giants are +8. The over-under is 45.5. I'm going to say this right here, and I'm going to say it proudly. This is the New York Giants season right here. If you lose this game, if you're the Giants, you still have 4 divisional games to go after this. Your season could fall off the tracks very, very quickly.
They would still play the Eagles twice and the Commanders twice,
which aren't easy games for them anymore.
We'll see. Yeah, and I have the Giants. I mean, look, Markeem's probably going to say if the Commanders can beat the Eagles, then the Giants can too, and maybe they can. But they're still going to be underdogs in both those games. So yeah, they have to put up a fight here. I got the Giants on the spread. The Cowboys are frauds on Thanksgiving. They never cover on Thanksgiving. They usually lose outright on Thanksgiving, as they've done in the past few years. I'm not saying they're going to lose outright, but definitely take the points with the Giants here. It's a division game. They're still a well-coached team. They really need this game. I don't know if I have the balls to pick them to win, but 9 points for the Cowboys on Thanksgiving seems like a trap every year. So take the other side.
I feel like, too, it's one of those things where, they see New York coming. Oh, Markeem, go ahead. Okay. The thing I was going to say was with this, I feel like the number on this spread is, you have the Giants just came off a bad loss to the Lions. You have the Cowboys who absolutely dominated the Vikings. So I feel like a lot of people think, you know what, hey, the Giants are going to get steamrolled. I do see the Giants covering the number. I'm just saying, though, if they were to get their asses kicked, this season for them could spiral very quickly. But I trust the Giants coaching staff to get the team back on track and for them to win. The other thing I will say, too, I kind of like Dallas to be there in January this year. I don't think there's as much pressure as there has been in years past. So that's a bold take I've been starting to make, where I wouldn't be shocked if this is the year you finally see Dallas get over that hump that they've been trying to chase for so long.
The Giants to win, though?
I don't like them to win. I like them to cover.
Cover.
8
points.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I don't like the Giants to win.
This will be close. This will be close.
I will say this as well. I do like the game to go over 45 and a half, though. But this is a game, though, Daniel Jones is going to have to win on his own.
You cannot trust the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. On Thanksgiving, the Cowboys are frauds, man. Just like the kid was saying, they give up a lot of points on this day to teams that have struggled to score. It's just for some reason historically, ever since the beginning of the new millennium, they have given up a lot of points on this day for some weird reason. It's something just about the air. I don't know. The turkey. I don't know what the fuck's going on. But yeah, they give up a lot of points this day. I think that yeah. And they might lose. They might lose. I don't think so, though.
They're prone to also buying into their own hype more so than other franchises, I guess, because of the spectacle of being in Dallas and all that. And coming off a 40-3 victory against an 8-1 team seems to only exacerbate that problem. So even more reason to take the Giants in the spread.
The other thing I'll say, too, is in recent years with points, the Josh Allen coming out party was on Thanksgiving 3 years ago in Dallas, if you guys don't remember. And then Antonio Gibson had a great game against them 2 years ago. And then last year, I'm pretty sure Derek Carr led a comeback or went toe-to-toe with them and then beat them in overtime. So it's just one of those things where, I don't trust Dallas to cover. I trust them to win. And as always, guys, on Thanksgiving, you have to have dessert.
I can see it.
You always have dessert on Thanksgiving. I don't know what your guys' desserts of choice are, but mine is the Minnesota Vikings playing the New England Patriots, where for this game right now, we're going to kick it to myself and Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings talking about this game on Thursday night. When it comes to Thanksgiving, folks, you have to have the appetizers. You have to have the dessert. Before you get to dessert, you get to have the actual turkey. But then you get to the dessert, the pies, sweets, all that stuff. And that's what this game is on Thursday night. You have myself, Patriots fan Griff. You have Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings as the Patriots take on the Minnesota Vikings in the primetime game this Thursday night on Thanksgiving. Both of us are coming off different situations with our teams. Obviously, the Vikings suffering a bad defeat yesterday to the Dallas Cowboys. And folks, for context, we're recording this on Monday. And the Patriots with a walk-off 10-3 stellar win. But Luke, how are you feeling about the team this year and everything else? Because I know last time you and I talked, it was that whole what-if scenario, because obviously it was March, but now it's the middle of November. And you guys, I know with the bad loss yesterday, are still 8-2 on the season.
Right, and it's hard not to be too caught up in the one moment where they just lost by 37 points and you're going, oh my God, they're the worst team in history. They're never winning another game again. But look, going into the season, and I don't remember where I was at when we talked last time, but I was pretty low on it. I went into the season, I think I called 7-10, which they've already beat. So they've definitely done better than I thought they would, but they're still. Justin Jefferson went on a Zoom call and talked about it a little bit today. They're still learning each other. They're still it's a new staff. There's a lot of new players. It's like we're all still kind of getting used to playing. And I think a lot of what they think happened in that game was, man, we just got to be a little bit more together. But yeah, rattling off 7 games before that, you don't give them back, right? So that I still feel pretty good about the team. I still think, I mean, look, they can go 2-5 down the stretch and still clinch the division. They can do a lot of stuff. They have a lot of room to learn stuff right now and learn about themselves. And I think right now the eyes have to be on, you're going to play in the wild card round unless you do real well. You're going to have playoff games to play here. How do you win those playoff games? How do we become a team that can win those playoff games? And it's like we're in a 7-game preseason here where we can just sort of, the stakes are low because of how bad the other teams in the division are playing. Let's learn. Let's try to really focus more on improving and less on being, caught up in the day-to-day. But they're already on to New England. They've moved well on from this. It's just the questions that they'll have to answer in the post game or in the press conferences.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where I like that attitude for the Vikings from your perspective, just because, look, it's like, hey, yesterday we lost. It was a mistake. Not to rub salt or dirt in the wound, but like I kind of thought, I didn't think you guys would get your ass kicked, to be honest. I thought like it'd be a loss just considering what happened the week before in that incredible game.
Yeah, the letdown.
Yeah, kind of that, like, that letdown spot, team on an all-time high. FYI, folks, I think Dallas Cowboys could potentially be that on Thursday. But, with that 1-10 against the spread I saw this morning is their stats on Thanksgiving recently. But with Minnesota, I like that too, because even in the Patriots, I know you probably saw it 10-3. It was a brutal game for like 59 and a half minutes, and there was like 20
game, and then the punt return.
Exactly. In the post game, Belichick saying to the team, guys, it's Wednesday. Didn't even say anything else about the win. It was like, hey, great win. It's Wednesday. Let's get on track. Today's Thursday for our teams. Patriots have 3 games in 12 days. This is, I think, going to be a true test for both teams, because obviously I know it's 8-2 against 6-4. But I think you can learn a lot about both teams as to where they can potentially go this year. I'm not saying it's going to be like, oh, whoever loses, it's a heartbreaking loss, because it's either going to be 8-3 or 6-5. I still think both teams are going to be in the play. Like Vikings for sure. Pats, I think, still be in the playoff hunt come December, and that's where I wanted them at this time of year. Your team's in the graphics. Steve Kornacki on NBC is going to be doing his crazy charts where he's like, okay, if they win this game, they have a 15% chance, but then 15 goes up to 54, and then if they win next week, 54 goes up to 82.
Much as you can hope for in that division.
Exactly, and with that tough division. Meanwhile, for you guys, Green Bay, like, the wheels have fallen off. Chicago, I think it's just they're still learning, even though they have to put confidence around Justin Fields. And Detroit, Detroit for me is that team where I'm like, okay, you're doing good, but how good is your good? And I think they'll get tested with that on Thursday. But going back to our game, I think this game's won in the trenches by both D-lines, because like Patriots O-line's banged up. Vikings, obviously, Christian Darrisaw's probably not going to play on Thursday night. So
confirmed, he will not.
Oh, confirmed he will not. Because I know I saw Kevin O'Connell saying that more than likely no, so it is confirmed he's out.
He will not.
That's the thing. I think whenever O-line holds up and whatever, I say this a lot with the Patriots, but it is true. If Mac or Kirk can play a mistake-free game, that's the quarterback that's going to lead their team to victory on Thursday night. I don't think I need to say who we think is going to win. I think you think your team's going to win. I think my team's going to win. So let's just leave it at that.
But yeah, and I always like the score predictions and stuff. I much prefer to talk about like what needs to happen for this team to win. And yeah, I think it is going to be a big trench thing. But maybe I'm still kind of a little overreacting to the trenches really lost that game against Dallas. Like that's really where it all went wrong, or where it went the most wrong. I mean, nobody is afraid of sin when you get beat by 37. But that's also kind of the kind of thing that happens. But look, 63% pressure on Kirk Cousins in the Dallas game. For reference, this is the stat going around. Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, that famously under too much pressure to function, and that got the Chiefs to go spend an entire offseason on only offensive line, like $80 million on Joe Tooney. That game, 37.5% pressure. Vikings were under 63. It's just like unacceptable. So you have to get better there. And I don't know what kind of pass rush the Patriots are bringing. I'm not very familiar with you guys, to be honest. So I don't know who the premier pass rushers are, but I'll tell you right now, obviously you're probably going to be attacking the backup tackle, but the interior is also worth attacking. Well, that's where most people have attacked the Vikings when the tackles are healthy. So I think it's sort of, pick your avenue. But if the Vikings can find a way to shore that up and to block it, Cousins has been a lot more creative than I think we're used to seeing him. We're used to seeing him as, sort of by the book, sit in the pocket, hit your launch point, deliver the ball to whatever the play says you should. He's been a lot more. He's been bailing on stuff, scrambling around, improvising, to various results. That is not the most worked out muscle that he has, but I think it's a really good step for him in his career. It's a genuine development. So even with a little bit of pressure, he's actually been able to overcome it better this year, but you can't do 63%.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's going to be protected. The other safety, before I move on, I just apologize from before. I said Braun, it's Braun. I missed the R before in the name, so Luke Braun.
Like the razor.
Yes. With this game as well, secondary play is going to be very big because obviously, and by the way, it's Dietrich Wise Jr. and Matthew Judon. Those are the two premier pass rushers for the Patriots this year, and also Jawan Bentley from a linebacking perspective. But with defensive back play in this game, look, you have one of the best receivers in the NFL in Justin Jefferson. You have the Patriots defensive backs who can make plays. You have the Patriots who can, they'll use their dink and dunk offense to try to get around guys like Harrison Smith, Patrick Peterson. So I think that's going to be a big portion of it too, is not more or less than the running game. It's going to be the passing game. So I'm looking for the passing game and which O-line can hold up the best as someone's just spam dropping Alvin Kamara. Did I say Kyle Pitts? Yeah, I said Kyle Pitts get dropped in the fantasy league.
Yeah, he's MCL.
So with that being said, I remember saying back in May when this game was announced, I'm like, this is going to be like Big 12 football. It's going to be like 45-42. But I'm like, the more I think about it, I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think the 41.5 there is a key indicator of –
it's an under for me.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an under game. I think this is one of those things where, look, defense is going to play a huge part in who wins this game. I think whatever defense can come up and make a play. Like, not saying the game's going to be like 10-3 what happened on Sunday, but
no, because you're not going to see Zach. Like, Kirk's going to give you more than Zach Wilson gave you,
100%.
And they don't have a Justin Jefferson in New York, like that kind of thing. And plus the Patriots just are super familiar with the Jets, right? There's a divisional aspect to that's where the weirdest games tend to happen because you just know each other so well.
Yes.
These teams don't know jack about each other. Yeah. So I think that the defense is, I guess, the key for me defensively. So Dalvin Tomlinson is a guy to watch. He was a limited participant on Monday's practice. I believe that is estimated because it's a walkthrough on a short week, but still. He's been out with a calf injury. He's been week to week is kind of the way they've said it. So we don't know. Kind of feels like that was going to be more of a 5 to 6 week injury and we're on week 3 of it. So I didn't think he would play, but if he's limited or if they think he could be limited on an estimation, then that's pretty exciting for me. But their run defense has really struggled without that. And they are a team that will lighten out the box. They'll keep both their safeties on the roof and they'll say, yeah, please run at us for 4 yards a pop. You can't make an offense out of that. And they've actually had Harrison Phillips has had some really great run stops. James Lynch is a rotational guy. Usually he's been the starter in Dalvin Tomlinson's stead. He's played admirably. They've got Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks both have some pretty insane highlights, shooting gaps and stuff. So stopping the run has been something that I think they've been good enough at for how little they prioritize it, both schematically and personnel wise. But what happened against Dallas, and if this is the blueprint to beat the Vikings, that, Dallas, they were running for 7 yards a pop on us and they were out physicaling and they were just taking advantage of those light boxes and they were just kind of beating us up everywhere. So if you're Bill Belichick, and that's a question, I guess, but if you can get that run going and get yourself living in 2nd and 2 all day, and that's what Dallas had. I mean, they had 2nd and 2 and 3rd and 1 all day long. And it's so easy to operate when you've got 2nd and 2. You can call all the shot plays in the world, right? Get really aggressive, do anything, or just take your first down, like whatever you want to do. That's the world we can't live in again. We did that. We got killed. We cannot let Mac Jones operate where he can just run like stick dragon all day and make college reads, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. But then where I look at this is more or less than like the Vikings simply they got run on. It was also the fact that Tony Pollard had such a good day receiving as well.
Yeah.
Did 31 fantasy points for me. Can't complain.
Nice. Very good. 2 major plays. Those are 2 outlier plays.
Yeah.
So I don't know how, like, I don't think the Vikings are like, we're weak to running backs now. Like, I don't think that's a thing. But they did find Jordan Hicks, who's a slower linebacker, on a wheel route on post wheel 1-on-1, just got run past. And that was it for a 68-yarder. That's going to, I think, comprise most of that.
Yeah. I don't think anything crazy is going to happen. Like, I don't think it's going to be another, like, you're not going to see the Vikings, I think, let up like that. I think you're going to see them, shut them down, make some plays. This game, like, if what I was saying earlier with the score, if I had to predict it, I'd probably say getting to 20 points is probably going to win you this football game.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I'm going to stomach more than anything else is having to listen to Jason Garrett call this game for 3 hours. I don't know how I'm going to deal. Mike Tirico's going to carry them on his back, him, Dungy, and Garrett, so we'll wait for that. But more than anything, because my thing is too is because the Patriots are always so good at taking away what your best position is.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Jefferson's your best. If I'm looking at this from a Vikings perspective, I think this could be a Dalvin Cook game. I think this is a game where, if he can find those holes and exploit them, he can run. TJ Hawkinson too, who hasn't been, I'm not saying he's been impactful, but he hasn't had a game yet since he's gone to Minnesota. KJ Osborne too, CJ Ham. So that's the thing. Like the Vikings, like the Patriots, have different. I'm not comparing weapon to weapon because obviously there's no one on Justin Jefferson's level on the Patriots. But when it comes down to that, I think you're going to see some unsung heroes emerge and help either team either win them the game or break the game for them.
I think I'd have to look at it, but I think TJ Hawkinson has been the second most prolific receiver next to Jefferson since he got here. He showed up, got 9 catches for 70 yards in the very first game. And he's had some insane third down catches in the second game. And then this last third game, nobody did anything. So I guess there's that.
As someone who just watched the goofy game from last Sunday, haven't been paying too much attention to the Vikings. That's why I said that.
We scored as much as the Jets did.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think like Hawkinson, I think would probably be the next guy to get it, especially if you're going to do what I think Belichick likes to do. And correct me if this has changed, but second cornerback on Jefferson with a safety helping over top is what he likes to do. And then CB1 will probably be on Adam Thielen. That's what I'm familiar with Belichick as being. And if you do that, then the Vikings probably just run a crap ton of, goes and seam stuff and corner routes, just try to clear the safety out and then work TJ Hawkinson over the middle where that safety is vacating. That's probably what they want to do. And I think for the Patriots, the challenge needs to be, what coverages do we know that we're comfortable with, that we know our players can execute, that both cover that middle of the field, but also give us the bracket that we want on Jefferson?
Exactly, because I'm just looking it up here because the last time that actually Hawkinson, this will be his second time playing New England this year. Obviously played them when Detroit came to New England in week 5, and he was held to 1 catch for 6 yards. So, and that was Kyle Duggar on him, and Duggar's a very, very good safety when it comes to covering tight ends. So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
But
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's just something to point out there. But at the end of the day, like I said, this is going to be a game one in the trenches, and it's going to be whichever quarterback costs their team first. Like yesterday for the Patriots, it wasn't that. It was just nothing could get going on either side. They found a seam and they capitalized. Meanwhile, we're going to get an angry Minnesota Vikings team wanting retribution because I will say this. I think if Minnesota loses this game, it'll be a bigger deal on the national media, like, your ESPNs,
for sure.
ESPN networks. It's going to be this 8-1 team. Oh, they're 8-3 now. Like they're panicking. Like, oh, could they, the whole talks of the division can lose, especially if Detroit were for some reason win on Thursday, which I doubt happens.
If they lose the NFC North, it will put their 2003 collapse, the famous Nate Poole in the back of the end zone, it will put that collapse to shame. I mean, they would need to lose out, basically. But right now, they live in a world where if they win any 2 games, as long as one of them is against the Lions, they clinch the division. That's beat the Lions and give up Bears team in week 18, and they can lose every other game and still win the division.
Because I'm even looking at the schedule after this. It's the Jets, which at this rate, I know Jets fans last week were like looking at that game like, oh, both teams are going to be great. They're going to be, that's Sunday Night Football flex. I'm like, I don't know about that anymore. Lions, probably a win. Colts, Giants, Packers, Bears, fairly
Find
relatively.
2 there, right?
No, I don't think time 2.
No, I said find 2 wins in there, right?
Yeah, easy. It's easy to find 2 wins. I see in your last, 3, 6. I see at least 3 and 3 or 4. And I think worst case scenario would be 3 going 500 in that stretch. Like you said earlier, this team could go 2 and 5. This team could go 2 and 6 down the stretch. It's not a big deal. I just think that whole overreaction Monday of how like now everyone's coming out and being like, it's like anything in the NFL week to week. Like I remember when the Pats lost that game to the Bears, it was all this, oh, what's going on here? Is it a quarterback controversy? When I said it was literally all teams just have a bad day. That's the Vikings yesterday. They just had a bad day. Offense, defense, special teams. It just every team in this league has it where you just don't have it. That's what happened to the Vikings. And it's a great opportunity for both teams, especially this is also the Patriots to their second game on a prime window. And I believe the Vikings first since the Eagles game week 2. So both are Monday Night Footballs. Both teams had bad outings in that game. So I think also too, here's the other thing. If the Vikings win no matter the score, I think Kirk Cousins can really get that prime time, can't perform after 1 o'clock monkey off of his back.
I don't think that'll ever leave him. He's got to win a Super Bowl before that leaves him.
Okay. That was my thing. So like at the end of the day, I'll also say this too. I think that the Pats can cover the number. I can't see a blowout. I think worst case would be like a touchdown or a 10-point win. I just can't see on either side it being a blowout. I just can't see that.
The Vikings can't comfortably beat anybody. They just don't have that killer foot on your throat kind of instinct yet. And I think, every game is a challenge they've never seen before because this is a brand new staff and very, very little experience on this staff. Ed Donatel, the defensive coordinator, has been a D coordinator a lot, but as sort of right-hand man to Vic Fangio, who was really calling the shots. So he's sort of green in terms of being the guy 100% in charge of the defense because you got an offensive head coach. Kevin O'Connell has called plays for like 8 games before this season in like an interim role. The quarterbacks coach was a QC coach. The O-line coach is a little bit more experienced. They've got a little bit more there. The D-line coach is more experienced, but they've got like a couple of position coaches, and otherwise it is a very raw, very green staff and a whole bunch of players like Jordan Hicks, Cam Bynum starting for the first year, playing together for the first time. Zadarius Smith, all playing together for the first time. Harrison Phillips. Yeah. So I'm sure you guys have memories of him.
Yep.
So yeah, they are seeing challenges for the first time a lot. And that's what happened in Dallas. Dallas hit them in a particular way that they hadn't seen before, and they didn't have a pitch for it. Well, they're going to come up with a pitch for it. If you see Dallas in US Bank Stadium on Wild Card Weekend, I'm going to guess that goes a little better this time. But the thing is, how many more times will somebody present something that they have not yet seen this season? So they haven't seen it this season. They haven't seen it at all because they're all so damn raw.
Yeah, so that's the thing too with the Vikings, where I feel like if after this year, even say if you guys losing the wild card round, losing the divisional round, I still think it's considered a W of a season just because the expectation was always going to be, it's Green Bay's division. We don't know what to expect with Minnesota, but then I think it's more or less the hype for next year just escalates to where everyone says, okay, the Vikings aren't that pushover anymore, and the Vikings are a team that, hey, they can make some noise. Maybe they're playing in Vegas come February 2024. If you guys are in Phoenix this year, all the power to you. But I'm just saying that's how I feel about the Minnesota Vikings. And before I let you go here today, you told me you have something you wanted to announce. So,
yeah,
you have the floor.
So if there are any Vikings fans that find this, or whatever, Patriots fans that want a Justin Jefferson jersey, I'm giving away a jersey. I'm doing a raffle, which is a fundraiser for a local nonprofit. For people who know my brand, I guess my show, I have a couple of pet rabbits that I love dearly, and they show up all the time on the show, and they pick the games and everything. So I'm a rabbit guy, and I wanted to help out the rabbit charity that has been not only helping us with adoption and stuff, but they've helped us with getting vet stuff, taught us how to give them medicine, how to groom them, how to take care of them right, and all that stuff. So I wanted to do a little fundraiser for them. You can find it on my Twitter. That if you just donate to that charity, you get entered in a raffle to win a Vikings jersey. They just buy one for you.
Love to hear it, folks. Help out the Rabbits. Win Justin Jefferson jersey. Who knows? Might make a good Christmas gift for somebody out there. Well, anyway, Luke, I appreciate getting to talk to you once again. Obviously, it's been a while for us. Kind of combatants this week, but you know what? You're always welcome on the show. And anyway, folks, that's going to do it for Luke and I. And now back to the rest of the podcast and the entire Sunday slate predictions. Some good insight from Luke, guys, and also link for the raffle for the Justin Jefferson jersey will be in the bio below. Quickly, I just wanted to ask you guys your opinions on this game. Quick thoughts. Do we trust New England in the spot more, or do we trust the primetime Cousins monkey to get off his back?
It's tricky for me because I think the Patriots are going to be very well prepared in this game. I was watching that Belichick victory speech after the Jets game. He's addressing the team, and he just goes, "Okay, everyone, it's Wednesday night. We have a game on Thursday, so just instantly getting over the emotional divisional win and telling your players you have to act like it's Wednesday night right now for this Thursday game." It was just really well done. Not every coach would do that. So they're going to be well prepared. They're probably going to slow down the explosiveness of the Vikings offense. Those big plays you see from Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson, you probably won't see in this game. Belichick will probably make them go down the field a little bit more, maybe pick on Kirk's weaknesses against the blitz. He's been really bad under pressure this year. It's weird.
Either.
Even though the Vikings are winning a lot of games, statistically, it's actually one of Cousins' worser seasons. Even though they're winning, his numbers are not as impressive as they have been in the previous few years. So the problem is Mac Jones and that offense going to score a lot on Thanksgiving? The Vikings offense could play bad and still win 17-13 and cover the spread. So I think it's a really hard game to call. I don't have a good feel for it.
I'm going to say this quickly, and I touched on Luke. Well, the first thing is to take the under. I don't think it's going to be a lot of points. I think first to 20 is going to win this game. My other thing, I was talking on with Luke, if New England can play mistake-free football and their defense, which is first in rush defense and pass defense on EPA, by the way, by a mile, next to the Denver Broncos, they will win. If Mac, because that's the thing too, I think was lost in this limelight of Sunday's 10-3 little fun game that they played against New York. Mac Jones had a pretty solid day and didn't turn the ball over once. He got sacked a hell of a lot. But when it comes down to who can win in the trenches more, I trust the Patriots to win the battles against their D-line, to win against their O-line, which, like I said, shout out Markeem, Virginia Tech. Christian Darrisaw won't be playing in this game more than likely because he's out with concussion. Meanwhile, if Justin Jefferson goes sicko mode, it's going to be a long night, but I don't expect that to happen. So I'm still going to rely on the Patriots to win this game, but it's going to be a nail-biter.
I don't even think, honestly, I think that this is a perfect game for Kirk Cousins to completely choke. To his credit, like the kid said, his numbers have been down all year, but he hasn't really played a bad game all year. Yeah, he's not beating up the bad teams like he usually does. This year, he's just kind of been solid, even against the good teams. He's finally beating good teams now. But I think this is the perfect game against Bill Belichick, who I think at this point we can go ahead and concede is the greatest defensive coach of all time. I don't even think it's really a debate now. I think at this point, this is the perfect game for him to finally have his bad performance. And I lose by 2 scores, man. I don't trust this man when shit really matters. Until he does it for an extended period of time, I will never trust that dude. And plus, also the Vikings in general, I don't trust them to deal with adversity when it matters. I've seen them come back and beat bad teams this year, but can they do that against a good team this year? You know what I'm saying? We'll see, man. We will see. I don't trust it though. I think they lose pretty handily. Honestly,
I just think that, like I said, this is going to be a first to 20 kind of battle, and it's whatever quarterback makes a mistake first. We didn't see anything like that with the Patriots and Jets game. That was obviously just more the magical punt return, and both quarterbacks couldn't get the job done. But at the end of the day, like I said, I think this could be a narrative where Friday morning people are waking up and going, "Oh, same old Vikings can't play in primetime," or they somehow get the win and everyone goes, maybe this is turning over a new leaf, but we'll have to wait and see. However, going on to Sunday, this game really starts off with a dud, as a Super Bowl matchup 6 years ago is now an over-under of 35.5, where breaking news, Sam Darnold is going to be the starting quarterback for Carolina on Sunday against Russell Wilson and the Broncos, without Melvin Gordon, I might add. I don't know how to feel about this game. I don't know what to say about this game. This it's just a game of ugliness.
Well, the total, I believe, is the record or close to the record. I saw something that it's the lowest total in the NFL in 20 years or something like that. So that's not encouraging for productive football. So both these teams are bad, et cetera, and all that stuff. My opinion, and I could be wrong on this, Benjamin Albright, who covers the Broncos for the Broncos Country Radio, he said that it is very likely that Hackett is one and done. He said it is so likely that we are on watch for an interim coach. Oh. Usually, and I don't think it's fully fair, but it's also the kind of thing where, that quarterback, they gave him a huge contract. He has to be there for several years. They have no choice. He has to stay, even though you can make the argument that he deserves to go more than the head coach does. But it's the kind of thing where you can't bring them both back. And if you have to keep the quarterback, then unfortunately your only hope is praying you get a Mike McDaniel type who can change him or turn him around. It's a shitty spot to be in as a franchise, but they don't really know what else to do. So in my opinion, usually with Matt Rule in Carolina earlier this year, when these things get bad, they tend to get worse. And when you have Benjamin Albright saying he could be fired at any moment, it makes me wonder if he loses this game at Carolina, if that's the game that actually pulls the trigger on a one-and-done head coach. So, I think for that alone, that's the only reason why I'm leaning the Panthers here, just because it seems like the Broncos are kind of falling apart. But, both these teams are bad. Anything can happen.
One quick point I want to make as well is that they had the change in ownership this year, and ownership's going to want to go hey, we didn't hire this guy. We want to go hire. We want to oversee the process and hire. I know they say don't get too involved like David Tepper has, and obviously the Matt Rule thing flamed out. But that's just one thing I want to add in as well is that the Walmart tycoons are going to want their own head coach. They're going to want to have their say in who's coaching this team next
year. Relatedly to the David Tepper thing, I should also say when Tepper got the Panthers, he kept Ron Rivera for another offseason after the 2018 season when he bought the team. And then Ron Rivera, midway through the 2019 season, that's when he got fired.
It was around this time, I think.
Even if you keep the coach, you don't keep him for 5 years. It's you're just kicking the can down the road until he eventually gets fired. So it's only a matter of time.
That's why my whole thing too is with this whole GM and head coach thing. I think unless the coaching situation is really, really bad, I don't like it. When a head coach, a GM gets brought in and then they keep the old coach around. I think that's why I bought into the philosophy of both go or none go. But this is different with Denver. This is different. George Fant as we lose Markeem again. So we'll just leave it at that. The Commanders at the Falcons, where the Falcons have 4 points as an underdog, over under 41.5. I like Commanders to win, and I like the over in this game. That's all I'm going to say. That's when I look at it, I'm just Commanders are a really frisky team, but I just can't trust Atlanta. I just can't.
I believe the Commanders also, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they don't they get Chase Young back this week?
I think so.
Yeah, exactly. So that obviously would make a huge impact in this game. I will say the Falcons are tough. The best team in the NFL against the spread, which I don't remember if they covered last week or not.
They did. They won outright. I had the Bears against the spread at plus 2.5, and they lost by 3.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I didn't know if it was 2.5 or 3.5. I forget what the exact line fell. I know the Falcons won by a field goal. Yep. But yeah, the Falcons are still alive in this division race. I am not ruling them out, and here's why: because their loss to the Panthers seems bad, right? The Bucs also lost to the Panthers, so that's not a mutual thing on either side. The Falcons play the Bucs again in Atlanta. They lost on the BS roughing the passer call in Tampa, and they lost by less than a touchdown. The rematch would be in Atlanta. And then lastly, yes, the Falcons lost to the Saints in the season opener. The Bucs are capable of losing to the Saints because they just match up well against them. I know they won the week 2 game. I don't think that means that all the problems are solved, much like how just because they beat them in the playoffs in 2020, that didn't mean that in the 2021 regular season games, they were just going to beat the Saints with no issue. Just because you beat them once doesn't mean the issues go away. They still have the Saints D-line is still very similar to the D-line that's given their O-line problems over the years. So, and they needed a pick 6 to score 20 points in that game at New Orleans. So yeah, Falcons are still alive in the division, but this game, coin flip game, don't really have a good feel for it either way. I'd probably take the points. out of just like don't really know for sure because it's 4 and not 3. But either way, coin flip game.
What do you have to say about your boys? I know it's been a while since you were on here. Last time you were on here, you were shit-talking Danny, which I'm going to have to talk to you off camera. We're going to have to get that again week 18. But you guys, 13-point favorites, 46.5 points. Last week, I fell for the silly trap of Washington's coming off an emotional division win. Houston's going to cover and potentially beat them in an upset spot. Nope, they beat the crap out of Houston. Houston is a dead-in-the-water team, and I think Lovie Smith is another one-and-done head coach. So that's all I'm going to say.
I also fell into the exact same trap. I also was on the Texans last week. I did really well on my picks. The Chargers were my top play. I was shocked that line was so high.
I don't trust Kansas City with a high spread.
And they always, and specifically in that matchup, Chargers-Chiefs, there's a stat. Herbert has never lost by more than 3 points at the end of regulation, which was true in that game as well on Sunday Night Football. Because the one time they lost by 6 was in overtime. So,
all right, my internet has been going nuts. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
You're good.
I presume you don't have strong thoughts on Commanders-Falcons?
Commanders-Falcons? What the fuck? Who the hell? I mean, I'm sorry. What the heck? Who the heck?
You can swear on here, buddy. You can swear on here. It's all good.
Yeah, I will say this. The Commanders are the most annoying bad team in the league because they're not that bad. They just lose all the time. They're not that bad.
They're good. They're good enough. They have enough like star players like Terry McLaurin and Chase Young when he comes back, and Montez Sweat and Jonathan Allen. They have enough good players to like cause a good team problems. But
they're not gonna win. They're just not gonna win. I hate watching it. How many hell they beat us? So whatever.
They're gonna find a way to shoot themselves in the foot come December and miss the playoffs. That's what's gonna happen with them.
Absolutely.
And they did this last year too. They went on like this 3-game winning streak last year, late in the season, and then in December they like imploded and went 1-3 or whatever. So, yeah, it's hard to take it seriously. But yeah, and do you have anything on the Broncos, the Russell Wilson Broncos against the Panthers?
Oh, well, my macro thoughts about the Broncos. I was so wrong about them. I was so wrong. So wrong about them, man. I thought they were going to be like 11, 12 wins. Nope. Russell Wilson, comeback player of the year. I mean, that's what I thought. Yeah, I mean, none of that. He seems done. He seems cooked. It seems like not even just from a physical standpoint, it seems like this is gone too. It seems like he's just, I don't know, just a different dude now. Yeah. And look, now we got to have the conversation. Look at Geno Smith this year, man.
Yep.
Like how much of that was Russell? How much we got to have that conversation now. We got to.
I give Seattle props too because man, they took an L on the Jamal Adams trade for what they gave up, but they took a W getting the 2 first-round picks, Russell. And one other point I'll make, I said this back in the day, losing Noah Fant would hurt the Denver Broncos, and it's proven costly here.
Yep.
Yeah, you've said that since I've been listening to this show. So yeah.
And now we got my team, right, Griff? Now I can go my little Dolphins rant. Yeah,
you can do your little Dolphins rant. You're going up against the Houston Texans before next week's big showdown against San Francisco.
Yeah, and they play the Chargers right after that, so it's juicy because next week you got Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel, obviously the natural story there, and then the week after you have Tua Herbert, the natural story there. So it's going to be a jam-packed couple of weeks after this week.
Which I'm going to interject quickly and say something. I think either one of those games should get flexed into primetime, but I don't think it will because I told Danny this. Jerry doesn't get flexed out of primetime.
Never.
That's Colts Cowboys. And then in 2 weeks, it's Chiefs Broncos. For as bad as the Broncos are, they're not getting Patrick out of primetime.
No.
Yeah, that's true. Patrick
won't get flexed.
And now the Dolphins this week on the spread, before I get into the rant, I will say, on principle, I can't take 13 points against any team in the NFL. Even the terrible team like the Texans. The proof of concept was last week. The Ravens played the Panthers at home. They were 12.5-point favorites. There was no reason to think that game would be competitive at all. And they still couldn't win by more than 10 points. Because that's the NFL. Like the Eagles could not cover the spread against the Texans a few weeks ago. So that's just kind of how the NFL is in 2022.
I think you're in good. I think you could take that risk this week, though. What are the Texans going to do with these receivers? What are they going to do?
Nothing, but here's what I will say. And this is like part of my Dolphins fans fear a little bit. So one, like I said, the Dolphins, their next like 2 games, are big. And then they play the Bills on the road after, yes. And then
all on the road.
On the road, they have a Christmas Day game against the Packers. Then they go at New England and the Jets. Like their whole schedule's jam-packed. It's like you're waiting for this game to end so their real schedule can start, which kind of has the makings of a little bit of a trap game. Them coming off their bye is more likely to hurt than help. It's not like you needed extra time to prepare for the Texans. Like, I think you're just more likely to get rusty. And
that's a good point.
And last thing I'll say is Tua last year, coming off the bye, had a really slow start against the Jets. And it was a home game against the 3-win Jets team, even though it was a division rival. And he threw 2 really bad interceptions in that game. And I could just totally see. In that game? What?
Was that the one where he had a pick 6 or no?
Yeah, it was the one where he had a pick 6. That was in the fourth quarter. So I could just totally see this Dolphins offense, which, for 2 weeks, they've been the 2 seed. They've been hearing how hot shit they are. And this is just – it just wouldn't surprise me if they score 7 points in the first half out of boredom and slow and rustiness and whatever. And then, sure, in the second half, they
that is a good point. They do seem like a team that should just keep playing. You're right about that. You are right about that.
Keep their rhythm going. So, and look, how many times has this number ever covered in the NFL? Now, yes, it is the Texans. This might be, in theory, the spot to do it. But I can't do it on principle. And on the Dolphins –
Davis Mills is going to give you 13 points. Like, what are you doing?
It might be Kyle Allen.
Well, that's true.
And it is true that the Dolphins, I've said this before on the show, the Dolphins defense, I think, is misunderstood. They are a great defense at home. They're terrible on the road. So I think their season-long numbers are misleading because they've allowed more than 30 points in every single road game they've played. And they've allowed more than 20 at home only once. That's it. It's a 10-point per game difference when they're home and on the road. Sunday Night Football, people might remember, their offense wasn't so hot against the Steelers, but the defense forced 3 Kenny Pickett interceptions. The defense does have a different gear at home. So yes, to your point, Davis Mills, if he plays, could give us 2 pick 6s or something like that. And maybe it's all for nothing. But I do want to say on the Fins, a big hearty fuck you to a lot of the commentary we've received. And more importantly, on Tua specifically, here's the specific thing I want to complain about with Tua. It's not just that he's playing awesome this year, obviously, and he has great talent. It's the fact that for years, because we live in this era of Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, there's this common false argument that you, as a quarterback, need to have a cannon of an arm or great mobility, or else you have a low ceiling. And that's what fucking drove me crazy, because that was never true. That was wrong the whole time. The whole time that was wrong. And I had to hear not people just criticizing Tua, but saying he's a low ceiling prospect. He's Jimmy, because if you don't have that cannon, if you don't make the big flashy throws or the big flashy runs, you're kind of limited in your growth as a quarterback. That was always wrong. It was wrong the whole time. And Griff, to be fair to Griff's quarterback, it's things people said about Mac Jones too, that was never true. And if that were true, Drew Brees and Peyton Manning never would have been Hall of Famers in the NFL. And sure. I'm not saying Tua is that.
Tom Brady would never be a Hall of Famer in the NFL. We could do this all day. Joe Montana would never be a Hall of Famer. Come on, what are we doing, man?
It's like the same thing too with the people who say that Troy Aikman shouldn't be a Hall of Famer, which you can make arguments for. But the one I make an argument for is that Joe Namath should not be a Hall of Famer.
That's what y'all know how I feel about that. God damn.
So that more than anything is what I'm mad about, because I feel like when people respond to Tua, they respond to yes, there's a segment of the internet that gets very hyperbolic and very critical. But that comment that to this day, you still see people see it. I even heard Mina Kimes, who I respect, the other day say Tua's playing great, but you don't really see that beautiful throw. And I'm like, that's the problem. People saw Zach Wilson.
Who cares?
Exactly. Zach Wilson.
That one throw on his pro day.
Yes. And everyone saw that, and they're like, oh, he's got a cannon, high ceiling. He could be the next Patrick Mahomes. No, he couldn't have. He never could have had. People just saw that he had a cannon and presumed he had to have a high ceiling because he had a cannon. And an argument I made on the show for years, people forget that Markeem might remember that era of the NFL when the strong-arm quarterbacks were overdrafted, when Jake Locker was going really high.
Yep.
That was also the lockout, though. Not Jake Locker, Blaine Gabbert, Christian Ponder. That was the lockout, too.
You go to Jamarcus Russell, you go to a bunch of prospects over the years.
Jamarcus Russell got drafted because, like you said, Zach Wilson. Same with Jamarcus went number 1 because of one throw at his pro day. You know what I mean? And Al Davis saw that and was like, yeah, that's the guy.
That's
that dude.
Guy. And it just shows like what a flawed system we have. And more than anything with Tua's rise, it just goes to show it's not even about him specifically, just that, yes, like you can be a high ceiling quarterback even without the prototypical traits. And there were a lot of smart analysts that thought in this era of the NFL, you had to have those traits in order to be a star. And that was wrong. It was always wrong. And I hope people realize it was wrong. And when the draft comes up in future years, let's not make the same mistakes. Let's not overrate the strong arm quarterbacks in every single draft just because we think every quarterback has to look like Mahomes, man. It's just not accurate.
One thing I want to say,
kid, I told you, kid, when they drafted Tua, I was like, man, he is good. I just think physically he might be shot. You know what I mean? But I was never in the camp like this dude is bad. I was like, bro, you put stuff around him. I saw him do it for 3 years, man. Like, I know the dude is good, man. He's good. He's just been hurt. That's all. Now he's healthy.
This year he's healthy. Like JT O'Sullivan, if anybody here watches the JT O'Sullivan QB school, any of the listeners, it's really great. He does. It's similar to what Kurt Warner does, where he like profiles certain quarterbacks every week. After that Ravens game in week 2, he said, this kid looks healthy to me. He looks healthy in a way he never did his first 2 years in the NFL. He looks like the hip has a little more stability to it, and he's more comfortable taking hits than he probably was in the prior years. And I think that also is what you're seeing. That
I still don't like that he doesn't feel the pocket the way he should. I think that's all because of his hip. Yeah. But like if that never happened to him, I really believe we're having a totally different conversation about Tua. Like seriously, he was because you know I was super high on him. Yeah. You know I was high as hell on him, way higher on him than I was our quarterback. But we'll talk about him.
And you still should be.
I am.
And that's another indirect fuck you to Danny out there who told me for 2 years that Jalen Hurts was better than him. And I don't care about the record. I don't care about the numbers. He's wrong. He was wrong then. He's wrong now. He'll be wrong in the future. And I'm never going to get off that horse until we get significantly stronger evidence to the contrary.
You always wait till year 3 to make a judgment on a quarterback. That's like when people are telling me, oh, Mac's another thing. Mac says, with Mac, I say the same thing. Year 3. That's why I was down on Daniel Jones going this year, because it's year 4. He didn't have the 3 years to prove himself, and now he's changed it to where he's probably going to get tagged next year. But the one thing I'll say as well is I've seen a lot of hate. Also, there's a conversation Markeem and I have gotten into about the whole people trying to say Kelsey's on Gronk's level or better, which that's another discussion for another day. Yep. But with the quarterbacking, look, Tua's come out there and shown he's playing well. You get him the right system, you get him the right weapons, he's going to flourish. But when it comes to other guys, yeah.
The last thing I'll say, I want you to finish that point, but I just want to say, and you protect him because it was not discussed enough last year.
Go out and get Armstead and Williams for a fucking reason.
And last year, they weren't just 32nd in the NFL in pressures allowed. They were 32nd by a mile. They were significantly worse than the 31st worst team. Every fan base thinks their offensive line is the worst offensive line in football. No. Mine actually was. It was. Statistically proven, they allowed more pressures than anyone else. And even though they were allowing more pressures than any other team in football, his sack rate was amongst the lowest in the league. And people use that as a knock against him. He's just checking it down. He's being a coward. He's not going down the field. No, it was a necessity.
No, he's smart. He have no choice.
Exactly. Yeah. And now he leads the NFL in yards per attempt. So another stupid fucking argument last year that was stupid then, stupid now, stupid in the future. Go on, Griff.
There's another take I have with offensive linemen, and I said this after the Pats-Colts game. Man, Quentin Nelson is not who we thought he was. He was if you go back and watch that Patriots-Colts game, dude, he was getting cooked the entire time. That used to be one of the best offensive lines in the league. Now it's reduced to nothing. The only other thing I'll say quickly with the college quarterbacks this year, I saw someone today compare Anthony Richardson from Florida to Jamarcus Russell. So we'll see what happens there. But I think
that's not fair. That's not fair. Come on. That's not fair. Why? Because he's big and athletic and he has a strong arm. Really?
I don't know.
That's not fair.
Yeah, I saw. It's just everyone saying like, "Oh, we don't need a quarterback this year." I feel like one of those guys that gets overdrafted is gonna, there's gonna be someone who has a lot of pressure on them. Like we don't know what.
Oh no, I don't think any of them are good. I'm not saying Jamarcus Russell. That's not fair. That's not fair.
You don't like Bryce?
Not really. No.
I know he's small. He's very small.
That has a lot. He's small and he plays like he's taller than he is. Like, you know what I mean? Like he tries to. He's not one of those guys like Lamar or Drew Brees where he's short and he plays like he's short. He plays like he's tall. You know what I mean? And he's not. And in the NFL, not being able to see over the offensive line, it's not smart. Not smart.
One thing I want to say about Alabama this year too is they don't have any of those like pop out playmakers. Like, you know how in years past they had all like these amazing wide receivers.
That's why they've been losing.
They have their offense is literally the tight end and Jahmyr Gibbs. That's it. Like the receivers are good, but they're not anything like eye popping. Like Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Julio Jones, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, Jamison Williams, John Mechie. Like those are guys who are true ballers. Amari Cooper, Jahmyr Gibbs is good. Also, the other thing I'll say is they're 2 decisions away from being a 4-loss team to Texas A&M in Texas.
Yep, they should have lost to Texas. They should have lost to Texas.
And them losing LSU and Tennessee the way they did was a byproduct of in the Bryce Young era. They always won those games at the buzzer, like that Auburn game last year that they had no fucking business winning.
Nope.
Like the Arkansas last year, they won by a touchdown. They beat Florida last year by 2 points. And then this year, the Texas win that they shouldn't have had. They were always getting so lucky all the time that LSU and Tennessee was like the other side of the coin. It's like you play this tight game for 60 minutes, you're eventually going to lose some of them. And that's what they did.
Before we go to the next
that's why, one last thing, that's why people have Bryce Young rated so high, because he can win close games like that. But I think that for sustained 60-minute NFL games, I just don't know about him, man. I don't know.
It's going to be a work in progress. He'll probably end up going to Houston. They'll take him. Just want to touch on the college football playoff and college football in general. So the rankings came out officially. It was Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and TCU. I'm going to have a take after this weekend. As long as, which I think this is going to happen, I think LSU is going to get cooked in the SEC championship game.
Yeah. Of course.
Once Michigan, the loser of Michigan, Ohio State, which I think will be Michigan, and if TCU doesn't win out and win the Big 12, you're gonna see they're gonna slide LSU right in there. And also, quick shout out to Phil because your Gamecocks got a hell of a win on Saturday, even though Hendon Hooker tore his ACL. They're gonna slide LSU in there.
That's why, though. Don't give them that much of a shout out. That's why they were playing without their entire offense. That's why. Like they couldn't. Now I will say this.
It's still an impressive win for the Gamecocks. That's all. A program that's struggled for years.
The defense played bad. That's true. The defense did play bad. But like if Hendon was there, they would have been just trading scores, man. They lost their whole offense. It would have been close, you know what I mean? But it wasn't close because Hendon went down.
Do we think the Pac-12 gets thrown a bone this year? If I think it's
Nope.
USC, yeah.
If USC runs the table and wins the Pac-12, do they get a bone and get in the playoff?
Nope, because all year no one has respected them.
Yeah. For years, no one has respected them. You can go back to my podcast with Alex Larson from 2 years ago, and he said that boldly that they do not respect the Pac-12.
Although to me, Caleb Williams is the Heisman Trophy winner. He's not going to win.
He's going to win.
But to me,
first overall 2024.
Yeah, like he should win the Heisman. He's not going to win though.
Are they just going to give it to Stroud just out of default? Like,
of course, because he's the only one that hasn't had a big loss and played well for most of the games. Like Stetson Bennett, if he was better, he would be shoo-in. But you know he's not any good. You've seen it.
Yeah, no,
we all know.
Is it theoretically possible that I've wondered this? If the Ohio State-Michigan game is close, let's say it goes to overtime or something, like, is it theoretically possible that they both get in?
Yeah, I expect that. I expect this game to be closer than both of them to get in. That's what I expect.
Ohio State's 7.5-point favorite, but I think Michigan can cover that number.
And they were.
I expect them to. It's going to come down to the last play. I think this game's going to be close as hell.
Ohio State last year, I think, was an 8.5-point favorite, and they lost outright by a lot more than that.
Yeah, they got destroyed.
Yeah, basically. And so I want to use this window while we're talking about the playoffs to ask Markeem, like, is Stroud, because you mentioned you didn't like all the quarterbacks. So do you think Stroud is a byproduct of just playing in that offense with those receivers like Fields and the other guys before him?
we have seen this since the Meyer regime because the offense is the same. Those are all his assistants anyway. You know what I mean? And we've seen all these quarterbacks look good in that system, and we saw how. I mean, hell, Justin Fields is finally starting to turn it around a bit. You know what I mean? But we know it's the quarterbacks look a little better at Ohio State. We know this.
Yeah,
I don't expect much from him at all.
Also, shout out to BigRat because Brian Hartline, current wide receivers coach, former Dolphin at Ohio State. And that's the other thing too this year. Like even guys like I remember it was all the DJ hype. Like I think with Clemson now shifting gears to there, who knows if they even win the ACC? But what was I saying? Clemson. It's kind of like how Kelly Bryant was a good quarterback, but he wasn't like this out of this world quarterback like Deshaun Watson was there or Trevor Lawrence was. I think it's the same thing with DJ. DJ's a good quarterback, but he's not. You have one of those guys, right? The other dude is overrated as hell. You have one of them right there. No, I'm talking about Trevor Lawrence. That's what I'm talking about. The front runner, Trevor Lawrence, yeah. The one that people told me was as good as Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. That guy, that Trevor Lawrence. Come on, man. He's going to be – Trevor Lawrence is that guy, though. If he does not I think people start to panic. Like, when you look at the redrafts, everyone says, oh, Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's gotten enough talent or pressure from the media of he hasn't exactly been this, earth beater. I know everyone gives that, Peyton Manning took a few years. But, if Jacksonville's not knocking on the door of the playoffs by next year, that's a big red flag.
Peyton Manning, his second year in the league was winning games by himself. Yeah. You know what I mean? We knew he was going to be great. Trevor Lawrence looks like a bust. Trevor Lawrence will be a bust. And I told the kid when he got drafted, I was like, I'm not sure about this, man. I'm not sure about this at all. I told him that.
It is a high level to live up to in the first place. It is, at times intimidating. No, it's definitely understandable why.
There's also 2 points I want to make about Trevor Lawrence. I think the way that he won the 2019 championship game against Bama, and also, too, in the 2019 Fiesta Bowl against Ohio State, they were playing bad, and then I forget who the defender was, but someone got out with a targeting call on Lawrence, and then, the next play is when Lawrence had, that 55-yard run, and then Clemson took over the game. So it's one of those things.
I remember. How do you remember that? Chris?
My mind is just, that's the two things I remember about that season was I remember my for the LSU Oklahoma game, my parents were like, "Oh, does Oklahoma a chance?" And I was like, "Nope, Oklahoma's gonna get their ass kicked." And Oklahoma it was 62 to 28 or something like that. And then I just remember the game.
It was Sean Wade.
Pardon me?
It was Sean Wade.
Sean Wade, current New England Patriot. Sean Wade goes out on a targeting call, and then it was 16-0 at that point. Actually, when I'm bored at work, sometimes I'll just search up Chris Fowler best calls because I love listening to Chris Fowler call a football game. And that was one where it's J.K. Dobbins had a great run. I think two of them, and then they were up 16-0 early. And then from there, it was just Clemson dominated. Justin Fields had the chance to win the game for Ohio State and threw an interception with 45 seconds to go. And then the other thing, too, with the national championship as well, A.J. Terrell had a pick six in that game. I actually just watched those highlights the other day. But that's my little Clemson rant.
And Markeem, is this playoff just boring repeat? Is it really as simple as Georgia's going to win?
I think this is Georgia's to win. I don't think any of the I can't imagine TCU giving them much of a challenge. The only way I think TCU is interesting because the only way that they could give them a challenge is if they gadget it up. If they just kind of just be wacky, you know what I mean? Trick plays all over, you know what I mean? Just throw them off, you know what I mean? Catch them off balance. Everybody else is going to go in there and try to be physical with Georgia, and it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea.
Is TCU, though, this year's Cincinnati, or do you believe they're actually a good team?
I do think they're good, but I do think that in order to beat some of the best teams in the country, they got to get creative. I think they have enough athletes to be able to score on anyone. I just don't know if they can, go in there and win the close, tight, games against some of the best teams in the country. I don't know about that.
Also, has there been a team more disappointing in the nation than Texas A&M?
No, I called this too. Well, I know I didn't really talk to the kid, but I knew this was coming too. Look, Jimbo Fisher, that whole situation has been a disaster.
$90 million buyout.
I saw this coming too. I knew that was coming.
And I don't know if I've ever told this story on the show before, but I went to the Texas A&M game this year, sadly, because the only team more incompetent than Texas A&M is my team.
Yeah, what's going on there?
No, I think we got something to say about that, kid.
That is true. Your team is quite bad. Your team is the only team that the Canes
look great against.
Yeah, sadly. And,
man.
I go to Texas A&M though, and I'm talking to this guy outside the stadium. And this was after they lost to Appalachian State. So you already see the articles, get Jimbo out of here, et cetera. And I go to the guy and I'm like, yo, man, the $90 million buyout, can you guys get rid of him? And he just goes, as long as the price of gas stays high, we can pay for anything. I was like, all right then. So if they want to, they could theoretically afford it, one would say.
And a lot of people close to the situation, they know those boosters, man, they'll get you out of there. They did it to Kevin Sumlin. They'll get you out of there, man. They don't want you there. You're gone.
You know what was funny about that whole thing? I remember when on Get Up they were talking about it one morning, and we'll get into his game in a bit, but I remember there was an analyst at the time who said, damn, I should get into coaching when he found out Jimbo Fisher's buyout. You want to know who said that? Jeff Saturday.
That's hilarious.
I should get into coaching was his exact words. This is
that's hilarious.
I think this was right after the App State incident, so perfect timing on that one, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But we're going to shift gears back now, guys, back to the NFL. We can talk college later.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this right here. Give me the Titans at plus money. Give me the Titans at plus money. I think this is a trap game. I think Vegas is trying to swindle people into thinking that the Bengals are back. I don't trust the Cincinnati Bengals this year.
-1.5 versus yeah. Give me the Titans, man. Give me the Titans.
Yeah, and the Titans are I stupidly did not take them last week. I should have, but at Lambeau on the road on Thursday Night Football. I think Mike Vrabel. Hear me out on this, guys. I think Mike Vrabel is the new Mike Tomlin. What I mean by that is they're an incredibly physical team. Mike Tomlin went on Ryan Clark's podcast, and he blatantly said that in the late 2000s, early 2010s, when they were going to those Super Bowls those 3 years, he basically said, yeah, the NFL, if they had spied our practices, they would have fined us a lot more because we were doing some illegal shit. There was violent stuff going on in those practices that no other team in the league was doing. And it showed up in the games, how physical they were. Same thing with this Titans team based on the way they play offense and defense. Offense built around Derrick Henry, defense built around Jeffrey Simmons and all those guys up front. And so what that leads to is when they have their backs against the wall and they're underdogs, they usually do really well. And this year as underdogs, they just killed against the spread. They've been dominant against the spread as underdogs. So
they cooked Vegas. Remember that week 3.
And this seems like a classic game where there's going to be an emotional speech in the locker room. The team that took you out of the playoffs, everyone's going to come really, really fired up. They're going to play very physically. Chase might not be 100% if he does return. So, yeah, I think the Titans are a good bet here.
I agree. And also I think that this is the point where Tennessee can actually kind of set themselves up well because, they're head and shoulders better than their division. You know what I mean? So time is now, you know what I mean, to kind of win the games we're supposed to win. So we'll be in a good position, come January and such. So, yeah.
New York Jets playing the Chicago Bears. Bears are plus 4.5, over under 39.5. I want to go Bears just for the laughs, but I think this is a game where, it's that self-doubt. Hey, Zach Wilson's there. Last week the New York media was having them on a pedestal, being they're going to go into New England, take care of business. I think even if Justin Fields plays, I think this is a game that the Jets have, to get right. I think this is a get right spot for them.
Yeah,
they got to. There's no choice.
Yeah,
they have to.
And look, for as bad as Zach Wilson is, people made this mistake a few weeks ago. He looked awful against the Patriots. All the Jets fans on Twitter were like, "Oh my God, we can't win with this guy," etc. They play the Bills, the fucking Bills, the next week, and he plays fine, and they win the game outright. Belichick does this to bad quarterbacks. He exposes them. He shines a light on them. Especially this year more than ever, if you have a bad quarterback against the Patriots, you're going to lose. You just can't get around that. And
your tweet had me all excited on Sunday, so thank you.
He's not going to win Coach of the Year, but I really think Belichick's job this season has been incredible. legit, like he has destroyed who he's supposed to destroy. You know what I mean? He is exposed, like you said, he's shining the light on anything that is terrible. He's going to show you everything bad about this, especially the quarterbacks. You're right.
Yeah, like the Lions and Bears are great examples of that. They had statistically, both of them had great offenses. Both have top 10 offenses by the numbers. But it's Jacoby Brissett and Jared Goff, and they played their worst game of the season against the Patriots.
And that was the thing, too. The Bears, the Patriots, they just had their worst game of the season against the Bears. I know everyone's saying, like, oh, Mac was bad. This is bad. I'm sorry. Mac Jones isn't out there running around after Justin Fields and letting fucking Dante Pettis and Equanimous St. Brown run over you. So that was just a bad game for them. Patriots-Lions was also, too. Lions shot themselves in the foot. I'm sorry. I was there, and I told you that they were going to win for me. But going 0 for 6 on 4 down was pathetic. That's something I'll say to you guys, too. Gillette Stadium. I think you've been there, Big Rat, but it's a stadium that I highly recommend visiting.
I went for a 38-7 Patriots-Dolphins game, and the Dolphins weren't the team that had 38. So
2015 Thursday Night Football, I remember that game.
So and their best player, on top of everything, their best player tore their Achilles and was out for the season during that game.
Oh, I remember that game.
Yeah. Jets, as bad as Zach Wilson is, they don't lose every week. Like, they beat teams all the time. He just can't beat the Patriots. It's fine. We don't need to overreact to it. That they can win this game. They can cover that number.
Yeah. One other thing I'll say quickly, and this was a hot take that I got laughed at a couple weeks ago but his odds have skyrocketed. Don't be shocked if Judon's nominated for DPOY at the end of the year.
Doesn't he read the league?
Oh, yeah.
13 and a half. If he gets to at least 18, he will be in that conversation. I think Parsons will end up winning it, but that was a hot take that I have now, is that I think he can win this no problem. He's having a hell of a year.
And
moving on.
And the last thing I'll say is also, like you said early in the show, like, they have the best, statistically by EPA per play, they have the best defense in the league. Usually, defensive player of the year sometimes goes to the best player on the best defense. So that would give him a chance, even though you're right. The hype behind Micah is out of control.
Also, Micah Parsons is also a confirmed psychopath. Cleveland versus Tampa Bay, where the Buccaneers are 3.5-point favorites. The over-under 43.5. I also don't know if you guys saw this, but you should go on Twitter and look up at it after. Someone snuck into the Browns stadium with their car and was doing donuts on the football field. So that happened today in Cleveland. The Browns have called the police on it.
Whoa.
Yeah. One thing I'll say, if the Browns lose this game, Big Rat on the AFC preview show, Markeem, go back and book this, said they were going to go 3-8 before Deshaun Watson comes back. That game is next week. So if it happens, it happens. I'm going to say this. I think that this could be a game that the Browns cover, but it's a close game. But I like the Bucs to win, because when you doubt Tom is when you're not talking about him.
But no one's doubting Tom, though. They're favorites.
I'm sorry, but now all his personal stuff's put aside.
Those memes are funny. Undefeated since the divorce. Like, yeah. I do get a kick out of that. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Also, shout out to the Munich crowd. That was a fantastic crowd for football.
But the trap with the Bucs, though, is that their problems are not fixed. They were very lucky to win that Rams game, and I was on the Bucs that week. I was on -3 against the Rams. They were very lucky to win. They won at the last second, and the Rams are a fucking disaster. And they beat the Seahawks, and everyone kind of thinks they're back. They're going to be the Bucs of the last 2 years. They're going to start going on a run. I don't think so. I still think this is a 500 team. I think they're probably going to finish the year 9-8 or something like that. So I think they got more losses in them. And if you look at their schedule, it is not easy. They have the Browns. They have the Bengals again. They have the 49ers. They got some really tough games coming up.
They have the Saints, too, which could be a trap, because the 2 years since Brady's gone to Tampa, what has happened when the Saints come to town? 38-3, and I think it was 9-0, but the 9-0. But that's the thing. If Taysom Hill had played better, that game would have been like 28-0.
And the Saints defense is pretty damn good this year. So
yeah. Like the front line is playing better. They played a lot better last week. They're getting better as the year goes along, I think. So I think that the Bucs. I'm not going to hedge my bets, because I did predict the Browns would go 3-8 with Jacoby Brissett. They're 3-7, so I should predict them to lose, so I can collect on the original prediction made back in September. But I do think the Browns can win this game. The Bucs are worse than I thought at the start of the year. I think 3.5 is a lot of points, and I think the Browns pass rush is going to have a day today, because I think the Bucs O-line is still not fixed, and I think at home, because they had that last time they were at home, they obliterated the Bengals on Monday Night Football as 3.5-point underdogs.
I was on the fucking Bengals that game.
And then they had their bye. I was on the Browns. That was my top play. They had their bye week. and then they lost at the Dolphins, and then they lost at Buffalo/Detroit. They haven't been back home since. I think you're going to get an emotional performance from the Browns, and I think the Bucs are vulnerable. I don't think they're so dominant like the Bills are that they can win in spite of the emotion of the Browns' performance. But I will predict, to hedge my bets, I will predict a Browns loss, but a loss by 3 points, and they cover this number.
I want to say two quick things about this game concerning both teams. I feel like Cleveland's going to be that team that, when Watson comes back, they're going to win a few games and kind of be like frisky, and that they're going to be, next year's, like, they're going to make a run. They're going to be good. Kind of like what people in Markeem did to Denver this year. But with Tampa, I want to ask you guys this. Tom Brady, I know people are starting to talk about it. Is this the final season? And also to Markeem had the Tom Brady was going to regress take back in August. Do you guys think that Tom's done, or do you think he goes to another team? Because in my opinion, I think it's either Tampa or he's retired. I don't think there's any other options.
Man, he better sit his ass down, man. This is sad, man. Like, I don't want to see him get beat up some more. He looks old. He physically looks old now. I need him to. This is it. Please, no more. No more. This is the corpse of Tom Brady, man. I don't want to see this no more.
I also think a lot of the year hasn't been fun for him. Like, he had that emotional reaction after they beat the Rams, right? He's at the podium. He said, "Yeah, that was fucking awesome." And it's like, it was a last-second win. He's done that a million times in his career. I think it felt great because the season up to that point was so miserable that win, like, really stood out in his mind. And I think
this is Tom Brady celebrating a mid-season win against the Rams. Like, it's over. It's over, man.
So I think that, and as I predicted earlier, like, I think they're going to keep losing. Like, it'd be one thing if they just went out from here and go 12-5 and he plays at an MVP level and it's like, I could still do this. This is fun. Maybe, but I think they're going to keep losing. I think they're probably going to go 9-8 or 10-7 or something like that, losing the playoffs early. And I think at that point he'll just kind of realize it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. I think he's smart enough to see that coming. So
honestly, he should have retired after he won that Super Bowl.
Yep.
Like, what else do you need to do, man? Like, you've done it all. Everyone says you're the greatest of all time. You know what I mean? Everybody says that. You won another championship. I don't either. You know that, kid. You won another championship. Nothing will change. Nothing will change anyone's mind. Go sit your ass down. You won a championship without Bill. You did it. Go sit down.
You also went back to Foxborough and beat Bill last year.
Exactly. Get out of here, man.
We forget this now, but last year there were a lot of people that said Brady and that offense with Gronk, AB, Godwin, and Evans, there were a lot of people that said, oh, he can do the 2013 Peyton Manning. I think he wanted that kind of season. And he couldn't because, Peyton Manning with a far inferior supporting cast than that one, by the way. Like, none of those guys on that 2013 Broncos team are going to the Hall of Fame. And a lot of those guys on the Bucs team are. So people forget. Hindsight is funny in that regard. He couldn't do that. And then I think to Griff's point, I think this past offseason, I don't know if he wanted to retire. I think he just wanted to leave the Bucs, and he couldn't. And so he came back to the Bucs. And I think now it's the reverse. I think now he won't want to go to another team. I think now he'll just want to be done with football.
I also have another take about this. I would rather have Mac Jones in the position that he's in right now with New England than the Tom Brady that we've seen in 2022 on the Patriots, because I think it would just be, a worse narrative. And then also if Tom Brady were to leave like this incarnation of the Patriots, if he was the QB, I think it would be worse than where they were when he did leave in 2020. So that's just me saying that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we've said this in the show before, that 2020 year that he won the Super Bowl, if he was on that Patriots team with N'Keal Harry, Gunnar Olszewski, Damiere Byrd as the main receiving options, he would have gone crazy. Like, he wouldn't have.
Who?
Yes, exactly.
Jacoby Myers.
People forget how bad it was at that time. He would not have thrown for 40 touchdowns on that 2020 Patriots team. There's no fucking way.
No, but that Patriots team somehow should have gone. That Patriots team should have gone 4-12, but they went 7-9.
Because Belichick is the GOAT.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna do some rapid fires quickly because I know Big Rat, you got to get going. Jacksonville, Baltimore. I'm gonna say this is a get right game for Baltimore in the sense of covering a spread. I think they cover this number pretty easily.
Of course. Yeah, -3.5. Absolutely.
Well, because that front runner Trevor Lawrence is going to be
absolutely.
Touchdown.
Absolutely. Soon as it's 7-0, it's over.
I'm going to say this right here.
7-0.
If the Chargers kick the Cardinals' ass, Cardinals are on their bye week next week, I think there's a strong chance that Cliff Kingsbury is not the coach after Sunday night. If the Chargers beat them handedly. If the Chargers win in a close game, I think he stays. But especially after what happened last night,
no way in hell he survives this season. I'll tell you that. No way.
I will say, though, this Chargers team is flawed. This Chargers team never wins by more than 3 points. They did it in the opener, and that was it. They beat the Browns by less than that. They beat the Falcons by 3 exactly. They beat the Broncos by 3 in overtime. They're not a team that you can trust to win with margin. So I do agree. If you were to get your ass kicked by them, the 5-5 Chargers team, then that would be a cause for a firing. But I will say, if Kyler Murray's back for this game, I don't think we know that for sure.
No, I haven't heard anything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if Kyler Murray's back, I think they got a shot to cover the number, and maybe lose by a field goal or something. But if it's not Kyler Murray, I wouldn't touch the spread at all. So.
Yeah, same. I'm the same way. If Kyler Murray plays, though, I do like Arizona at plus money. Seattle, Las Vegas. I'm just going to say this right now. I trust Seattle off the bye, especially to the fact that they did lose their last game. And I think Vegas, that was an emotional win. Look, Patrick got cooked by Devontae Adams. But when you look at the Raiders' wins this year, it's the Broncos and the Texans. Like, that's nothing to smile at. I know I've seen Bronco fans start to make, excuses for Derek Carr, say that he should be gone. But I'm like, their defense is terrible. They do not have a good defense in Vegas.
Worst in the league, I think. 32nd in DVOA.
Yeah.
There you go, Randy. I haven't mentioned DVOA yet. My bad, buddy. The Raiders, I believe, I'll check it, but I believe the Raiders are 32nd in defensive DVOA this year.
That Chandler Jones contract looks terrible.
You got to be right. There's no way. That's so terrible, man. And then you got MVP candidate Geno Smith against this team, man. Yeah, they're going to get killed. They're going to get cooked, man.
And it should be pointed out, someone has mentioned this year more than any other, there's a lot of first-year head coaches that seem to be at risk of losing their job. I know that it might not really apply. They are 32nd, by the way, confirmed.
Okay.
It might not apply as much to Vegas because I think the owner said that Josh McDaniels is clear for another year. But can you remember a year where with Josh McDaniels, with Lovie Smith, with Nathaniel Hackett, you have very viable one-and-done coaches that are first-year head coaches all in the same season? Doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
Because what other coaches, though, could you say is truly on the hot seat? I'd say probably Cliff Kingsbury and Brandon Staley. Besides that, there's not a lot of coaches that scream like probably going to get fired. The two that have already been let go. If
the Cowboys lose in the wild card round, I think you could see McCarthy.
Yeah, I can see Jerry Jones getting emotional and getting McCarthy out of it. I can see that.
Especially after they lost last year in the wild card round too. And they lost, if you look at the playoff game last year, they lose because they had 15 penalties and they were terrible in game management. That's the head coach, like both of those things. That's directly on the head coach. So, yeah.
It also depends on how they lose, though.
Yeah. The nature
that matters.
This is also going to be a spicy one, but I think if the Jets season really falls off the tracks and they miss the playoffs handedly or by a big margin, don't be shocked if Robert Saleh's name's in those conversations.
But
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Okay, look, I understand like the end point of that. Like if they lose 7 games in a row, yes. But the problem is his defense, which is his responsibility, is like his side of the ball that he has experience on.
They're incredible. Right. Incredible.
The defense, I think, is too good to prevent that from happening. I think they're too good to prevent them from losing 7 in a row or whatever.
That's a spicy. It's a spicy take more than anything.
I mean, they're relevant for the first time in years, man. I don't know.
Rivera's the other name to mention. I know I do think he's a genuinely good coach, and they've won a lot of games in a row lately. But if they miss the playoffs, if they eventually go 8-9 or whatever, or 7-10, you're probably getting new ownership with Daniel Snyder maybe selling the team. New ownership going to want their own guy. Something to think about.
That's true.
Do you have enough time for a couple more games, Big Rat, or do you have the Pens?
Let's go.
I like San Francisco to win, but I like New Orleans to cover. I just trust the Saints defense to keep it a close game. That's all I'm going to say. And also the fact that I was on Arizona last night, but that's because, Big Rat, you've given me the rule. I don't take big spreads in division games.
I know.
But we saw something happen, and now I have to go back and watch the Cardinals Hard Knocks to see how it plays out. But that's my thing with this game. I think San Francisco wins, but the Saints cover. The other thing I'll say, too, is I only trust San Francisco and Dallas to make it far in the playoffs this year at the moment because the way both defenses have been playing, like San Francisco, man, that Ufanga kid is something else. Like Christian McCaffrey, and on the offensive side, Brandon Ayuk's finally coming into his own. Debo, Kittle, McCaffrey. And I'll say this too with San Francisco. How do you get rid of Jimmy G at the end of the year? Like, say if they get to the Super Bowl.
You can't.
No.
You can, but here's how you can, though. You're right. You can't if you make it to Super Bowl. I agree on that. Here's how you can. You lose a playoff game where it feels like he's the reason you lost the playoff game. Like a division.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like last year, how he threw that late pick against the Rams.
Yes. If they were to go to the divisional round and he like throws 3 picks or whatever, that's like the reminder to the front office and the fan base. Oh yeah, he's good enough to get us here. We don't think he's quite good enough to get us over the top, and that's how you. Because
you're gonna hear oh man, this guy. Yeah. So yeah, you're right.
But yeah, I mean, if they win the Super Bowl or even get to the Super Bowl and lose close, like yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a really good way to put it. He's good enough to get you there, but he's not good enough to get you to the mountaintop. Moving on to the next game. I don't trust Kansas City with a big spread. I'm going to say that right now. Regardless, I just don't trust
14.5.
Look, I agree with you, and on principle, I'm going to take plus 14.5. And yes, like we just talked about, Ravens, Panthers. Ravens had no reason not to cover that number, and they didn't cover it. But man, no Stafford, this team, because I think we're getting no Stafford because he's in the protocol again. If he plays, forget everything I've said and take the Rams, no questions asked. But no Stafford, it's tough. I agree with you.
14.5 is a lot, though, man.
Yeah, if the Eagles didn't cover 12.5 against the Texans, yeah, I agree.
Ooh, I'm also going to say this. I know they're my preseason pick to go to the Super Bowl. There is one thing stopping Kansas City from going there, and that's the fact that Andy Reid only plays in Florida Super Bowls.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because when Andy Reid comes to Hard Rock Stadium in the AFC title game and loses to the Dolphins, then yeah, he won't be able to play.
Oh my god!
Andy Reid's not like Phoenix, Arizona. But no, if you look at it, 2004 loses to New England and Jacksonville.
Why you got to do that? Why you got to do that?
The examples.
Plays San Francisco and Miami, and then
wins
Tampa Bay and Tampa Bay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing here, though. I just don't trust the 14.5 because more than anything, I trust the Rams defensively, like Aaron Donald and them, to kind of, make it frustrating for Mahomes. The other thing I'll say, too, is the fact as well, same thing, emotional division win. But then again, I said this last week where I thought the Houston Texans were going to beat the Commanders, and I was wrong there. So you know what? If Stafford doesn't play, give me the Chiefs. If the Rams win, and for my spread pool where I just have to pick winners weekly, where I've been pretty good the last few weeks, I've lost out twice. Once because of Kansas City. That I could have won my week, but I picked the Kansas City Chiefs to cover against Vegas in that Monday night game. The other one,
14.5 is just too much for me. That's too much.
That's the thing. It's just too much.
It's too much. You have to do it.
I'm going to say one thing about this game. The Eagles in all black on Sunday Night Football against a struggling Packers team. Give me Philly. I don't know about the number, but give me the Eagles outright.
all black, really?
Dude, look it up. They're wearing black helmets, blacked out uniforms. We'll look it up.
Packers season is on the line in this spot. I took them against the Bills a few weeks ago on Sunday Night Football to cover the number, and they did cover the number. And that was at Buffalo. To me, is more intimidating than at Philly. And I think the Packers can play a close game here. I think Packers on the number. Give it to me. That's my call. They just beat. I understand the Thursday night game was bad. The Thursday night game was very bad, and everyone saw it on national television. The week before, they beat the Cowboys. Everyone's precious Cowboys, and everyone's fawning over right now. So I think they can be competitive with Philly here.
Yeah. The Eagles, I think they bounce back here. I think they take care of business pretty handily. But I also think that in the second half, expect Jalen Hurts to do nothing like he's done all year. Nothing in the second. He gets out to a hot start and then does nothing in the second half.
Is he a front runner?
Absolutely. I said that when he was in college. Absolutely, front runner.
Are you ready, guys, to talk about 6 feet of crap?
Oh, the Monday night game?
Oh, God damn it.
Yeah.
God damn it.
I have no clue on this one.
What's worse? This or the Broncos and Rams on Christmas Day?
Oh, Broncos and Rams, man.
Yeah, no. That's too depressing, especially since Stafford might not play in the game and Hackett might be fired by that point. Like, yeah, that's definitely more depressing.
Also, Cardinals Bucks on Christmas night.
The Colts are bad, but they're fun to watch. I'll say that. Like this whole situation is fun to watch. They're train wreck that's fun to watch.
The Jeff Saturday thing does add like an element of chaos to them, where you don't really
you don't know what's gonna happen.
This is really hard for me to read with Pittsburgh. I was not on them last week. Normally, I'm on the Pittsburgh as underdogs, but the Bengals were 0-3 in the division. They could not lose another game. Like it was too. If they went 0-4 in the division, their season's basically over because they still have to go. They still have to play the Ravens too in Cincinnati later in the year. So, yeah, they had to win that game. But this is a little more like the traditional Pittsburgh underdog spot, like when they played the Saints a few weeks ago at home, and that was their rallying cry. When they played the Bucs at home, that was their rallying cry. This is a similar rallying cry. They're 3-7. They lose this, done. But the Colts obviously can't afford to lose too many more games either. So I think my gut tells me TJ Watt makes a big impact in this game, and the Steelers cover this number. Whether that means they win or they lose by a point or two in a slugfest, I don't know. I'm a coward. I'm not going to predict a winner. But on principle, I'll take them to cover this number.
Oh, one thing I want to say quickly, too. If Jeff Saturday is hired as their head coach, like take the interim tag off for next season, put them on Hard Knocks. I'm sorry. And they're going to be that team. They're going to be Detroit from last year. They're going to be Detroit from last year. The Colts are the one team I'll admit I was dead wrong about. I thought the Colts were going to be this like crazy team that could potentially be a Super Bowl dark horse. Matt Ryan resurrects his career.
Yeah.
Also, for everyone, you know how people like to say Mac makes faces when he gets sacked or hit? I found someone worse, and his name is Sam Ehlinger. Go look up the photos from the Colts and Patriots games. He looks like he's crying when like Judon's hitting him. Like you should have seen it. But
Markeem, did you ever think Sam Ehlinger would be a starting quarterback in the NFL?
No, I did not. Like, come on, how do you not love this? It's amazing.
But wait. Can I play one? I have something I want to play for you guys right now because it's still saved on a clip from a previous episode.
Longhorn Nation, we're back.
They beat Georgia in, I think, the Sugar Bowl that game.
Yep.
And the very next